Surprisingly, I had survived my landing. I found myself in a forest. I looked for my flybox, a gnomish air vehicle, and was sad to see it in pieces. But it was a one-way trip sort of vehicle. I made my way through the forest. As I trekked through the forest for I can't remember how long, I eventually found my way into a town. It was full of humans. You could find humans everywhere. They lived like bugs in that fashion. Not that that's a bad thing. My people had done business with them in what we call tolerance towns. Those are places for trade near the foot of our mountain. It was a place for us to trade and meet with other races in a controlled manner. Anyway, ancient racism aside, I needed to find where I was. I had traveled and asked around, only to have my fears realized. I was in a town in the country of Norm. Mind you, Norm was not a dangerous country. Far from it. That's why it worried me so. I had landed in the most boring country in paradise. After traveling through the town all day, night had finally fallen, and not only was I disappointed where my journey had taken me, the night had brought freezing cold wind. I had to find shelter, and soon. I had found an alley and a few discarded, moth-eaten blankets for my bed. I was about to turn in when I was found by a large, burly, bearded man. He was accusing me of stealing his discarded blankets. I thought that I was in serious trouble. After a heated discussion, the large human, whose name I learned was Oliver, and I came to an understanding. He was a blacksmith who, between you and I, was not very good at his profession. Complained about business troubles, for the reason I mentioned, no doubt. And he took his woes out on me. Upon further discussion, not so heated, I learned that Oliver did have a tale to tell, provided I could help him build a more efficient forge. I felt it was a good deal, so we shook on it. Oliver was shocked by how quickly I had fixed his forge. It was adorable to see him so impressed by something so simple, but I digress. In his thanks, he provided me room and board, as well as an interesting tale. A carriage rode down a path towards the town of Todd. Inside was Lady Lisa and her brother, Lord Robert. Robert looked at his sister, who seemed rather displeased. What is the matter, dear sister? Lisa glared at her brother.
Do you have to ask?
Come now, Lisa. She's not that bad.
She's always that bad.
Robert shrugged. Well, someone shouldn't have snuck out of the house in her finest dress for a wrestling match with a common boy and some bramble bushes. I mean, honestly, sister, you could have some more respect for yourself. You could have at least procured a room at an inn. Lisa sneered at her brother.
Is that where you have wrestling matches with common boys?
Robert sneered back at his sister. Meanwhile, as the affluent siblings bickered on their carriage ride, Thag and his goblin band were readying their roadside heist. His forces, basically 6 other goblins, found their hiding spots behind rocks and in trees. Thag and his second-in-command, Salikk, hid behind their own rock, ready to attack.
Are you sure about this path, Thag?
We have been thieves for our whole lives, Salikk. We cannot turn back now.
Salikk rolled his eyes.
I'm talking about this path we are hiding around.
Oh, right. Most people travel down the main path, right?
Salikk nodded as he gave Thag a look of doubt.
Yes, which begs the question, why are we here instead of there? I mean, that's where all the commerce is.
Thag smiled at his second-in-command.
Exactly. So there are bound to be those who get sick of all the traffic in and out of town. They will take the not-so-beaten path. They will come down our path thinking it's safe, and then...
Thag slammed his fist into the open palm of his other hand.
Bam! That's when we strike. They'll never expect it.
Thag pointed to his head with a big smile on his face.
Do you get my brilliance?
Salikk stared at Thag for a moment, then proceeded to shake his head.
No.
Thag sneered.
Just wait and see.
Noble sibling's carriage had stopped in front of a run-down-looking building that had a sign that read Gertrude's Tailoring. Lisa stared at the little shop in fear.
You know, I don't think I need my dress repaired that badly.
Robert glared at his sister.
So the sooner we go in, the sooner we can leave.
Fine, let's get this over with.
Lisa stomped into the store.
Huh. That's the spirit?
Robert followed his sister into the shop. The goblin band continued to wait. Salikk gave Thag a glare.
You'll see any minute now.
Salikk nodded, rolled his eyes, and continued his watch. Robert and Lisa stood in the little shop. Lisa wanted to maintain her rage, but she was distracted by the beautiful dresses.
How does she make such beautiful dresses being a...
Being a what?
Lisa was surprised to find Gertrude standing before her. Gertrude was a rather rotund woman with stringy blonde hair that looked like wet hay, dull brown eyes, and a face with several warts. Gertrude stared at Lisa, waiting for an answer.
Oh, Gertrude, hi.
Thag and his goblins continued to wait. Salikk was the only one not facing the road. He was glaring at Thag. Thag side-eyed his second-in-command.
They're coming!
Salikk rolled his eyes. Gertrude glared at the noble siblings.
Well, what do you want?
I was curious if you could do some repairs for me.
Did you tear it up with one of your romps with the local boys?
Lisa lunged for Gertrude.
You bitch!
How much would fixing her dress cost?
Robert stepped between his sister and Gertrude to prevent a situation. Considering Gertrude was a heftier woman, Lisa would not have fared well. Gertrude stared at Robert. Robert grew nervous in the silence.
Well, can you help us?
Where is the dress?
Robert pointed a thumb over his shoulder.
It's in the carriage.
Gertrude sneered at Robert.
Why didn't you bring the dress into the shop?
Robert looked confused.
I didn't know if you could repair it.
Gertrude rolled her eyes.
How do I know if I can repair it if I don't see it?
I will go get it.
Gertrude sneered and nodded.
Good. You're learning.
Robert stared at Gertrude with rage in his eyes. Gertrude was unfazed. Robert stomped off, feeling defeated. The sun was going down as the goblin horde continued to wait. Thag looked over at a goblin hiding behind a rock. This goblin was Fezzik, and he was sleeping.
Fezzik, wake up!
Fezzik awoke and looked at his leader with sleepy eyes. Thag glared at the goblin in fury.
Stay alert!
Yes, you need to be ready for the nobody coming down this road.
Thag glared at his second-in-command.
You know, patience is a virtue.
Apparently one that doesn't pay.
Gertrude examined Lisa's torn-up dress as the noble siblings watched her in uncomfortable silence.
Well,
When do you need this?
a week?
Gertrude shot an angry glance at Lisa.
Is it...
400 gold.
How much?
This is a noble's dress, so I have a lot of materials I have to find. That's 100 gold. I have to keep it covert, so I will have to find these materials in the dark. That's another 100. I have a small time frame. That's another 100. Also, you interrupted my concentration. That's the last 100.
I think you're taking advantage of us.
Gertrude shrugged.
Nah, I see your point.
Robert and Lisa, you were taken aback.
Really?
Sure.
Shoved the dress into Lucy's hands.
Good luck finding the other best seamstress in town.
Lisa. She and Robert looked down at the dress, then at each other. Robert reached for his coin purse. Thag and his troop still waited by the road. Thag grew annoyed as he heard more snoring. Salikk glared at his leader.
Sir,
Thag put up his hand to silence Salikk.
Don't you even say it!
Salikk pointed to the empty road angrily.
I don't need to.
Thag hung his head, feeling defeated.
I know!
Thag dropped onto his hindquarters on the ground.
Oh, I don't know what we're gonna do about the bugbears. We still owe them gold.
Salikk walked over to Thag and put a hand on his shoulder.
We're screwed.
Thag sneered at Salikk.
Thanks.
After the annoying noble siblings left, Gertrude closed up her shop. She hated having to set up her elaborate security system, but if she was to find her materials for this new project, she needed to start now. Night had fallen and the road was still empty. Thag shook his head.
We should pack it in.
Thag walked around to the other goblins
Get up!
and proceeded to kick them awake. The goblins woke up to a screaming Thag.
We're abandoning this stupid plan.
Isn't this your plan?
Thag shot a furious glare at the goblin. Thag shook his head and continued walking.
Let's just get back to camp.
Gertrude trudged around the countryside. Needed to go down this lesser-traveled road to find the right cotton plants. They seemed to only grow in this area, much to Gertrude's annoyance. Thag and his goblins made their way back to camp. Thag stopped as he heard something.
Wait!
Thag put a hand to his ear.
Did you hear that?
Thag smiled.
Why, that sounds like
Thag turned to look at Salikk with his sly smile.
me being right.
Salikk sneered. Thag motioned for the other goblins to follow him.
Come on, then. We have our score.
Gertrude searched as best as she could in the dark, but was having very little luck.
Damn it, why did I decide to look so fake? How could this get worse?
Thag readied his goblin troops who had a net. He stood back a few feet.
All right. On my signal.
Salikk glared at Thag.
Why are you standing so far away?
I need to supervise now. Wait for my signal.
Salikk sneered as he gripped his part of the net.
Whatever.
Gertrude continued to look for her materials.
Plants were right here last time I looked. Where?
Gertrude noticed the bushes moving. It made her suspicious.
What's going on?
Salikk turned to Thag, looking worried.
It's noticed us.
Thag panicked and furiously pointed towards the creature he could not see.
Get it! Get it now!
Gertrude stared at the bushes curiously.
Is someone there? Are you peeping on me? Stop watching, you pervert.
The goblins jumped out of the bushes with the net in their hands. Gertrude looked horrified.
Goblins?
It was too late. The net was dropped on her.
Get this off of me!
Not a chance.
Salikk looked Gertrude up and down in confusion and disgust.
Human?
Salikk shook his head and regained his focus.
Anyway, you're coming with us.
Gertrude was enraged by the situation. She grasped the net in both hands and gritted her teeth.
I don't have time
Gertrude started ripping the net apart.
for this.
With Herculean strength and a primal scream, Gertrude ripped the net off. Salikk and the other goblins watched this in horror.
Oh no.
Thag stayed back in the bushes to supervise his men, although he could only hear his men fight the human. Thag smiled.
Sounds like the boys are doing well.
Oh!
Is all Salikk could say as Gertrude's fist crashed against his face. Another goblin tried to jump on her back, but Gertrude heard her assailant, spun around, and slammed her fist into the goblin's stomach. Gertrude pummeled several goblins. Salikk lied on the ground, holding his bleeding nose. As he rolled on the ground, he noticed a large stick nearby. He looked towards his companions, who were not doing well. Fight the beast. Salikk saw his opportunity. He grabbed the stick and charged towards the monster. He jumped up and brought the stick down on Gertrude's head. Gertrude fell to the ground unconscious. Gertrude only saw darkness for a moment. She had few dreams when she slept, which she didn't mind. She hated her dreams.
Oh.
Gertrude awakened. As she looked around the tattered tent, she realized she wasn't home. Gertrude tried to get up, but found her hands and legs were bound.
Oh, come on!
What?
Salikk nodded with a sneer on his face as the two goblins stood outside of the prisoner's tent. Essentially Salick's tent due to there being a lack of a prisoner's tent, much to Salick's chagrin.
I said she has nothing but a basket.
Salikk said angrily as he held his black eye from the fight. Thag shook his head in disbelief.
But Fangrine will be here tomorrow.
I know that.
Oh, what to do? What to do?
A thought came to Thag. He faced his second-in-command with a stern look.
Let me see the prisoner.
Oh, now you want to see it.
Thag glared at Salikk. Thag walked into the tent to find Gertrude standing up with broken ropes at her feet and a look of rage in her face. She glared down at the little goblin leader.
Hi, Goblin.
Thag stared up at Gertrude in awe. He looked upon her large jowls covered in warts. He looked upon her stringy blonde hair that looked like thin, wet hay. He looked into her dull brown eyes and thought she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Thag turned to Salikk.
Salikk, go!
Thag found Salikk was already gone.
Salikk?
Salikk was running far from the goblin camp,
Yeah, I'm done with this.
and so Salikk left for his own adventures. But that is a story for another day. Gertrude held Thag up by his throat.
I will end you.
Thag struggled, but not much.
Before you do, can I ask you something?
What do you want?
Thag smiled.
May I look at your face a little longer?
Gertrude was confused and annoyed by the goblin's request. And intrigued.
What?
Thag looked at the hand that was choking him.
Could you loosen your grip, please?
Gertrude thought about it for a moment. Thag continued to plead.
Please?
Gertrude didn't know why, or maybe she did. But she loosened her grip. Sort of.
Thank you.
Gertrude shrugged.
It's the least I could do before I kill you.
You're mad, aren't you?
That comment made Gertrude angrier and tightened her grip.
Oh. I understand why you're mad.
Gertrude's grip tightened even more.
Do you?
Thag struggled.
You don't understand. We're just trying to survive. I mean, I don't even enjoy robbing anyone. But I'm a goblin. No one will give me anything just because of who I am. Can't you understand that?
Gertrude suddenly let go of Thag and he dropped to the ground. Thag looked up at Gertrude, who stared down at him in shock.
I do know what that's like.
It's about time someone did.
Thag, I'm here for what you owe.
Gertrude was surprised.
What was that?
Oh, my luck.
Thag looked up at Gertrude as he took her hand in his.
Listen, I know we've only known each other for a few moments, but I know that I love you. I know it's a bit forward, but I'm pretty sure I'm about to die. So before I do, I want to give you two things. Your freedom and my heart.
Gertrude stared down at Thag uncomfortably for a moment before she mustered the courage to say,
Sure.
Gertrude slipped her hand away from Thag's and proceeded to run out of the tent. Thag nodded solemnly.
I thought that would happen.
Thag made his way to a clearing in the forest to meet with Fangrine, a large hairy bugbear, the large cousin of goblins, along with two other bugbears. Fangrine snared at Thag as the goblin approached.
About time.
The bugbear leader looked Thag over.
Funny. I don't see you carrying what you owe me.
Thag sneered back at Fangrine.
Really? I don't think you look close enough.
Thag unsheathed his sword.
Here's what I owe you. A sword in the gut.
Fangrine stared down at the defiant goblin for a moment, then broke into laughter.
I didn't know you could be so funny, Thag.
Thag pointed his sword at Fangrine.
No jokes, Fangrine. I will no longer live under your rule.
Fangrine sneered.
Correction.
Fangrine and his men unsheathed their weapons.
You will no longer live.
Thag shouted at the top of his lungs.
Attack!
Thag looked around curiously as none of his men came to his aid. Fangrine broke into laughter.
You idiot. Your loyal band ran off as soon as they saw us.
Fine.
Thag charged towards Fangrine.
Then I'll kill you myself!
Fangrine looked bored.
Okay.
Fangrine backhanded Thag to the ground, canceling Thag's epic charge. Fangrine looked down in boredom and disgust.
Are we done now?
Thag faced the ground, mainly not to show the tears he was fighting back.
Just get it over with!
Fangrine nodded.
As you wish.
Fangrine lifted his sword over his head. He was about to bring it down on the goblin's neck when a sound distracted him.
Oof. Huh?
Fangrine looked back to see that Gertrude had knocked out his two bugbear cohorts.
What the hell are you?
Gertrude walked up to Fangrine, looking into his eyes with fury.
Pissed.
Gertrude delivered a punch to the bugbear leader's mouth. Fangrine fell to the ground with blood and teeth trailing behind as unconsciousness overtook him. Thag looked up in shock.
You came back!
Gertrude walked over to Thag and with one massive meaty hand lifted him so that he was inches from her face.
You're damn right I did.
Gertrude brought Thag in for a deep kiss. A few days later, Robert and Lisa's carriage traveled down the trail. Inside, as per usual, the privileged siblings bickered.
I can't believe you're making me say how.
You're the one that wanted her dress repaired.
Thag hid in some bushes as he watched the carriage going by. He whispered over his shoulder.
Are you ready?
The carriage continued its trek with its passengers unaware of the goings-on around them.
Never said I would pay for it.
The siblings' discussion was suddenly brought to an end when the carriage suddenly stopped. The siblings tumbled out of the carriage. Robert exited first in a huff.
What is going...
Lisa saw her brother look up in shock. Lisa looked up to find the carriage driver was caught in a net.
Get this off me!
The siblings looked at each other. Before they could say anything or react, a large net fell over them.
Hey!
That is a finely crafted net!
Robert and Lisa found Thag and Gertrude staring at them with big, malicious smiles on their faces.
And this is robbery!
Gertrude, what are you doing? We were coming to pay you.
Gertrude walked over and grabbed her coin purse. She shook it at her former customer.
And you have.
Gertrude and Thag walked away hand in hand, laughing.
I thoroughly enjoyed the story my host Oliver had given me. I bid him adieu and asked where I should go next. He told me to make my way north to Vidrown. He said it would be a safe travel due to the constant vigil of the moose riders. I shook his hand, left him a few pointers to maintain his forge, and went upon my way.